Hello everyone, my name is KJ and today's video is my non-spoiler review for season 2 of Daredevil Born Again, which all 8 episodes are now available on Disney Plus. And if you hear about it, you've seen this show getting another season, season 3, and you're still not sure, well, let me be the one to convince you to check out Daredevil Born Again. Whether you've seen season 1 or not, I'm going to try to convince y'all to check this out because season 2 was a banger. So, before I start, could you guys do one thing for me? Could you hit the like button, aka the thumbs up button? That would help my YouTube channel out, and I appreciate that. So, again, I'm not gonna spoil nothing super major about this. I'm not gonna talk about the main plot. I'm not gonna talk about what goes on this show. I'm just gonna talk about it in a way without revealing any secrets, and I'm just going to talk about things I did like about it and what I didn't like about it. Just as a show, I'm not going to talk about the Easter eggs or the connection to how this connects to other Marvel shows and movies, but I do have spoiler reviews for those here on the YouTube channel, Great Talk and Entertainment. So definitely check those out if you have seen this show or you're getting ready to. So without further ado, I'm going to start with the summary and then I'll go into it. Let's lock in. Now, Daredevil Born Again Season 2 is an action packed series that took the Daredevil franchise to a new level of excitement, adventurous, and very dramatic way that definitely fits the MCU. This season focuses more on trying to make Daredevil fit in the MCU versus trying to bring back old things from the Netflix era of the Daredevil show that was once on Netflix, which is now on the Disney Plus. But they focusing more on the current time in the current phase of the MCU and shows what Daredevil's been really up to from the other previous events in Marvel movies and shows from each phase. So they really locked in on that. And I think that's really awesome. And the way this show ended, I think you guys are going to be definitely satisfied with this. I think it has so much to go on. And, they really did Daredevil so well. To me, they really stuck to Daredevil's personality from more of the comic books versus the Daredevil show from Netflix. So I really appreciate them locking in on that with the comic book accuracy to the character Daredevil. And I think season 2 just was an amazing season. I think it's better than season 1 for sure. Just because it feels more like the Marvel Cinematic Universe in this season. Season 1 definitely had that feel to it, but this one, from start to ending, felt like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, let me talk about the things I did not like about it, and then I'll talk about the things that I did like about it. So, the things I didn't like about it, the first two are not really a big deal, but I think it could have made it a little bit more exciting. It would have made the story a little bit more better. And I think the Marvel fans would truly appreciate it if certain things did happen. So, like, the first thing is I wish they had cameos from other Marvel characters from the movies and the shows. I'm not talking about Spider-Man because Sony movie studios, Sony Entertainment, I should say, they own the movie rights to Spider-Man and all the Spider-Man characters that are from the Spider-Man arch. So I understand why they couldn't put Spider-Man in a Daredevil show because Sony owns it and it's their decision and they don't want their character in a Disney Plus show. They're going to say no. But Disney slash Marvel Studios owns other Marvel characters that I thought that should have showed up at least one time in any of these episodes that I thought it would have helped achieve and would have made the story just a little bit more better, you know. And there's so many. There's like Ms. Marvel. We have Kate Bishop from the Hawkeye series. You know, we got, I don't know, Thor, Black Panther's sister. You know, so much. Like there could have been anything. You know, just so much. And I think honestly, it would have helped. You know, like here's another example. They could have added, you know, characters from the movie Thunderbolts. I think, you know, seeing like Yelena or her father, you know, the Red Guardian or Bucky, aka the Winter Soldier, like that would have been cool. Even Bob, that would have been sweet if Bob showed up. And I think those are like the cameos that I think that should have happened, but they didn't. And didn't have to like be the main story, but to just to show like they know what Daredevil's been up to. They understand what Mayor Mayor Kingpin is up to and all that. Like I just think those type of cameos again. Heck, even added She-Hulk that would have helped just to kind of give the audience, the viewers, the understanding. Like, hey, just because you don't see these characters show up all the time in other people's show, but they are well aware. But I think at this point in stage with Marvel Studios, they should be doing stuff like that, especially if these are just going to be like maybe they're not going to always do a season for all these like Disney Plus Marvel's series. So I just thought this would have made sense for that. Not a big deal because again, and here's why it's not a big deal. It's because of the fact like maybe not now, but these characters could cross over and team up in other future projects. But I think and sometimes I think moments like these in certain seasons it should happen, but again, they can make that up later on down the road. Now, the second thing I didn't like about it, which is not a big deal in a way because it's kind of forgettable, but there are characters, no pun intended, that you forgot that was going on, and obviously these characters are going to reappear again in season 3 for Daredevil Born Again. But there was just certain characters that you kind of forgot, but they later showed more towards the end of the season. And I get what they're trying to do, leave like cliffhangers and tease that something could happen that's very diabolical or very cool looking or creating the next superhero that's going to take place. And I just felt like there some characters, okay, they can be, that's fine. But there was like two characters that I felt like should have had more time on the screen in this season that didn't get barely even got any screen time, you know. And I think now them trying to add that story now in season 3, it may overlap what season 3 could be at. But that's just me. But it's not a big deal because these are again characters that you may not see again for a long time because again with Marvel Studios they got so many Marvel characters from heroes to villains, like they got so much to focus on, right? And obviously they're putting more of their energy now with the Avengers Doomsday, especially with Doctor Doom. I can see why these characters are going to be sitting on the shelf for a long time, but not very long, but not a big deal. Now, the third thing, I think it is a big deal, but the third thing that I didn't like about it, they somewhat kind of spoiled somewhat of the story for Spider-Man Brand New Day. But if you're not watching this show and then you watch Spider-Man Brand New Day first before Daredevil Born Again, it's not gonna ruin it. But I think if you're like me who's watching this first so I can get ready to watch Spider-Man Brand New Day, I feel like this wasn't a good idea. It made sense why they would do it. And the only thing I can think of, either Sony put them in a position where they couldn't get out of it story wise, but then I know that's not a real good excuse to do that to the way they went with this. And I'm not gonna say what episode, but there was an episode that just kind of ruined, like, or not ruined, but spoiled what's to come in the Spider-Man Brand New Day movie. And I felt like, maybe they didn't have to do that, but I feel like but I probably, Sony probably didn't give them a choice, but then again, maybe Marvel Studio just didn't care. They're like, it's not a big deal to them. But I have talked to a lot of people who have watched this show, and they were just kind of like in a disagreement of like, well, I can't believe they did that in this season. So, in my opinion, really, I didn't like it just because, again, it kind of makes things kind of obvious what's going to happen in the Spider-Man Brand New Day movie. But I will say it's not going to destroy and ruin the main plot because, again, with Sony owning the movie rights to Spider-Man, like their focus when Sony makes a Spider-Man movie, their focus is not to really, in a way, try to connect everything they do to Marvel Studio stuff, the MCU. So it's not a big deal, but it's just kind of like, oh, I wish they were a little bit more creative with it. So that's all I gotta say about that. Now, the things I do like about it, the three things I did like, I like the main plot of season two of this show. I think it was very good. It definitely it was art imitating life a lot, and I like that. And it kind of inspires people to stand up and stuff and unite. And I also just like the dynamic duel between Daredevil and Kingpin. Good versus evil, bad guy versus good guy, hero versus villain. I love that type of story. And it really felt like a comic book story from a Daredevil comic book. And I think that is the best thing about season two's main plot, that it just felt like a comic book story if you read about them, you know. And it definitely, to see these two characters just do their thing, was very good. I mean, it was amazing. Which that leads me to number two. The thing I did like about it is there was a lot of character growth. We saw new character depth, new layers of these characters that show more of another side of them. We saw a weaker side, we saw a stronger side from each character from this show. And like it also, created new characters that people could become a fan of enjoying when they watch the Daredevil Born Again series. It also had a really good message to just life in general, too, with these characters. And they took unexpected turns and twists and shocking moments with these characters that you would never imagine these characters would do unless you really read a lot of Marvel comic books. And I liked how they really put a lot of focus on those things. And you can tell that they took a lot of inspiration from certain Daredevil comic books. There's so many, and I just thought this was just so good. So good that they did that with these characters. And especially for Daredevil, they really did well with Daredevil, and just watching him grow and add more layers to that character in a live action way as well. Like, honestly, the The best way I can describe it is if you ever get a chance to watch the Spider-Man 90s cartoon animation, there's a season where Daredevil shows up, and this came out in the 90s, but there was some inspiration from the way they portrayed Daredevil in that show, and they took a little bit of that element and put it in the live action of this version of Daredevil. And I really like that. And also too, just again from various comic books that I thought they did really well. So that's just one thing. The second thing I like about this. And now the third thing that I liked about this was the ending. At first, I I was kind of shocked with the ending of it, but as a storytelling purpose, it made total sense. And honestly, it was the right move because now, in a way, Daredevil can be like a mentor in a sense. He can be more older, wiser, mature in this show. And we haven't seen that with Daredevil. If you just base it on the Netflix show Daredevil, they never really got to that. But this one, they really kind of got to that point in his life. And I think that's really good. And also, too, it left so much mysterious things that could happen with this and where they would go with the character Daredevil. And I think they're going to it really indicated that they're going to use Daredevil a lot more than we could ever imagine, and they must have big plans for this character to go the route they went with this. And I think that's really awesome. So, season 2 to me as a whole as a whole thing was a 10 out of 10. Season 2 is definitely a 10 out of 10. They really stepped up in production. They stepped up in a Marvel series on a Disney Plus streaming, and they also just I can tell everybody from the actors to the actress to the director to the screenwriters, they really put, and I'm not saying nobody else did, but I can tell they really put a lot more effort in this than ever, and it felt like they really were giving it all 100% their best. And I think what they did is you can tell they are huge Marvel superhero fans. And I'm not saying nobody